people overthink, you know, that they're not going to have time, or I'm not, you know, successful enough, or you know, I've had people who are new to industry brokers, or people who aren't even broking yet. I had a guy on Friday morning who's followed me up probably 11 times on Instagram and Facebook, and my first comment to him was, "You'll be a good broker." But he's in construction at the moment. Right?
Yeah.
And I had about a 45-minute conversation from Sydney up to Avalon around understanding his niche, where I think he's positioning himself. I didn't get anything out of that.
Yeah.
You know, he lives in the Gold Coast. Like it's so far disconnected from what I'm doing that, you know, but it does help me with my own dialogue and my own questions. And where I was going with that is, you know, he just reached out to me. He's not in the industry. He hasn't achieved anything in broking. And he sent me a long message originally giving context about who he was, why he wanted to reach out to me, and he followed up aggressively. And the reality is that, as I always say to the junior brokers, it's all in the follow-up.
Yeah.
And I think if you pester someone enough, if you really want to get a hold of them, they're going to make time for you.
Welcome to QuestX podcast. It's amazing to have one of our guests here, Christian Stevens. I'm running this conversation with Tanya Gomez today, and it's going to be a casual conversation. So, Christian, welcome on board.
Thanks for having me.
It's amazing to have you in QuestX. It's a very passionate project for me, so we're going to have a very casual, lovely conversation today. But we want to start with a game.
Sure.
And just to sort of break the ice, right? And I'm terrible at games. And I asked Tanya to look it up, and Tanya just went online and found a game that she thinks is cool. So let's see if the audience will like it as equally as Tanya is excited about it. Tanya, do you want to start?
So it's 2 truths and a lie. So if you tell us 3 things about your business or your background or about you personally, Yasser and I have to guess which is the lie.
My mum is one of 6 children.
Okay.
I don't own a car.
Okay.
And I was born in Brisbane.
All right. Are they all alike? Can that happen? So let's start with the first one, see if it's true or a lie. I'll say, so your mom is one of 6. I would say that's a lie.
I think it's Brisbane because I think you started off in Canberra.
I did grow up in Canberra, but I was actually born in Brisbane. My
Brisbane.
father was
so
in
I
the
was
military,
right.
so I moved around a lot. So the lie is...
You don't own a car.
No, the lie is
Your mom is not one of 6.
I've given you 3 truths.
Oh, God.
You can't lie.
that
You
again?
can't lie.
Should we do that again?
This isn't camera.
I was like, wait a
We're not
minute.
taking that down. We're not taking that down. Ollie, we're not taking that down.
See,
I'm a truthful
you're
person.
so honest. You can't even lie.
You just can't lie, all right?
I love that.
All
That's
right.
great.
Well, can you just give us something? I don't know. What do you mean the 3 truths? It's a truth and a lie.
A lie.
Well, you can't do it
I didn't
now.
start broking till I was 29.
You didn't start what?
Mortgage broking till I was 29.
That's a lie.
Oh, really?
No, it's the truth.
There's a truth too. All the
Wow.
nightclub promoting.
So actually, let's start. Right? The game you completely failed, right? Just let me tell you that. I think like, so. But let's just get to the who Christian Stevens
Sure.
is. Tell us about you, but tell us things that maybe left field a little bit. I want to know more of the person.
Did most of my childhood in Canberra. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot. Brisbane, Singapore, ended up in Canberra, obviously, because that's where defence is located, and spent my childhood and schooling there. Went to England, to a place called Bedford, to do rowing coaching for a couple of years. In the 9, 10, 11, 12 at school, I was quite a good rower, a good athlete. You probably wouldn't think that now, but back in the day, it was a big part of my life. Coming back from Bedford, from England, I didn't want to move back to Canberra, so moved up to Sydney. At that time, I was doing a bit of nightclub promoting down in Canberra and started a Facebook group called Sydney VIP, which meant if you're on the guest list, if you're part of that group, you could get on any guest list in Sydney. That grew to like 50, 60,000 people. So I actually was getting paid thousands of dollars a week at the age of 19, 20 years old, whilst living in Canberra, for getting people into clubs in Sydney. And I guess that was my first experience of leveraging social media to build a brand presence, or understanding the power of an online brand. So then moved up to Sydney, did that for a good part of a decade, and got to the age of about 28, 29, realised it's probably not the kind of industry or career that I want to be doing long term. And then was sitting next to a friend of mine at a birthday lunch, and he offered me a job as a broker, and the rest is history.
Wow. So I'm interested in you've got 3 touch points that you changed from. One is the sports aspect.
Yep.
Then the promoting aspect, and then now you're a broker.
Yep.
Tell me how one contributed to the other, or they completely have no influence on each other.
I think they always have influence on each other. Teamwork in general, whether it's sporting or business, is really important. Understanding that you can't achieve great things without a team of people around you. And what rowing taught me was what can be achieved when you've got, 2, 4, 8 people completely aligned, technically doing the same thing is pretty incredible. And in business as well, I think if you've got people that are willing to run through a wall for you and align with a vision and a growth mindset, what you can achieve in business as well is pretty incredible. So teamwork's always been a big part of my life. I'm also very competitive, which comes off the back of enjoying sports. But promotion is just a dirty word for marketing, I think. Understanding how to, market, position, brand, PR is paramount for the success of any business. And promoting is really just customer service, is all it is. Looking after people, making them feel special, whether that's B2B, B2C, in a business perspective. But I think they're all related. All those little things that I've learned over the years have definitely helped sculpt the kind of person I am today, especially in business, and definitely a very, very important part of the success to date.
Love that. And I'll get Tanya to jump in because I know Tanya is itchy for some questions. Because we're very excited to have you here today. But if I ask you a very interesting question. So we pivot in business and we need to sometimes adjust our ways. Which way would you do it? Would you keep your ways alive to continue your success? Or would you change the way you do things because that's what business dictates? So do you stay true to what you've done till now, which got you success? I mean, you're one of the best people in your field. I know very well how good you are at what you do. So would you stay true to what you've done so far and continue doing it exactly the same way? Or would you change the way you're doing it given that everything changes around you?
I think you have to always adapt. The idea that what you've achieved to date is going to be different to what you're doing moving forward. I think anyone in business who's good at what they do can adapt quickly and change and learn. It's delusional to think that it's a linear, road to success without a lot of learnings. I'm a big believer in how you react to something is far more important than the issue itself. And those that are good in business normally just react better and learn faster than others.
So what's important to you? What's more important to you? Helping people or making money?
I think money is a byproduct of doing something you enjoy well. I think that's never been a focus to make money. I think the more people that you help and lives that you change as a byproduct of that, the more success you're going to have, and money is obviously a part of that success.
I love that. Tanya?
Yeah, I don't know you as well as Yasser does. So I guess for myself and our listeners, can you talk to me a little bit about what you do today? And I suppose I've heard a lot about how you've really changed the mortgage broking landscape in Australia. So I'm really interested in how you found a gap in the market and then leveraged that to create something new.
What do I do today? I am the CEO of 2 brokerages. Flint, which is a normal metro brokerage. We do asset, resi, commercial, business development and private funding. Also the CEO of Farmers Finance Australia, which is like a large agribusiness brokerage. What did I do differently? I think when I started, there would have been about 10,000 brokers, 12,000 brokers in the industry, all doing the same thing, really dominated by an older demographic of mainly men who were all doing the same thing. I saw there's a big opportunity because no one at the time was leveraging social media to build a brand presence, position themselves in market as thought leaders, and coming from that promoting background, I find that very easy. I think there's a power in selling through education, and there's a lot of information out there, whether you're a first home buyer, professional investor, foreign income expat, whatever, being able to digest that information and then present it in a way that's easy to understand, I find very easy myself. So that's where I saw the big opportunity, is understanding the different niches within the industry, and then myself and other brokers that work with me, building them up to be experts within those niches via selling through education.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're really breaking down the complex into simple, actionable steps, and then using your brand as the difference in the market. You've created yourself as a brand, your business as a brand, and therefore you can stand out in a saturated marketplace.
I think what you can do online, on social media in general, 10x's the potential of your growth. Like traditionally, you had to position yourself in market. It took you a long time to kind of build a reputation. Whereas these days you can do in 1 year what typically took 10, which is terrifying and also exciting. So, there's a big new wave of younger brokers, both female and male, coming through who understand that. I've seen people with no broking experience within 12 months position themselves, in that top 1% in the industry, because the power of leverage in business, regardless of what industry you're in, is quite powerful.
So would you say then that the exposure you've been able to gain is the differentiating factor between your business and businesses that aren't successful in the space?
100%. Obviously it's taken a long time, but I've got a couple of 100,000, an audience of a couple of 100,000 across different social channels. At any one time, if I put out anything across those social channels, it's hundreds of thousands of impressions, if not 1 million every month, without spending $1.
Yeah.
So, that is quite powerful. And then what I can do for other brokers is the same thing. So, being able to have an audience that you can leverage off both B2B and B2C. I think if I think about referring partners as an example, I've got a meeting coming up, I'll add them all on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. So by the time they meet with me, they've already seen 100 pieces of different content. They've seen my ADMs, my newsletters, my broadcast channel, my stories. So they understand that I know what I'm talking about. So it makes those meetings a lot easier. It's more just converting the business and relationships rather than me trying to pitch to them what a mortgage broker does.
Yeah. Yeah. It also reduces the actual time to sale, because you're not 100%. Having to do the education piece of talk them into getting a mortgage broker. They come with that decision made. I find about 80% of my leads for my business come from my podcast. And I find that when they come, it's not actually even, I don't have to sell them at all. They come saying, I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to buy. What have you got to sell me? I've decided you're the person I want to work with. Now take me through what that actually looks like, as opposed to me having to pitch my service, tell them why they need me, have 15 follow-up sequences. It's definitely speeds that process up.
The podcast stuff in general is pretty exciting. Like my business partner, one of the best brokers in the country, he now gets that 75-80%, he said the other day, of his leads off his YouTube and podcast that he only started 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best brokers, 0.1% of the brokers in the whole of Australia. And it's crazy to think that within 12 months, he's already built a bigger lead funnel than his entire business of 10 years to date.
Yeah.
So I think, off the back of what you just said, then I get people reach out to me all the time that say, hey, I've been watching you for 6, 12, 24 months. I haven't even liked or commented on a single thing. But I think the power of being able to get to a large audience easily, especially through video content, be able to position yourself, and that authenticity in the brand as well. People get to know you without ever meeting you.
They get to know you, and also they know if they don't like you. So you get a whole lot of people who decide you're not for them, so you actually cleans up your leads as well. So you get people that resonate with you and go, absolutely, she's the one, or they're the one, or absolutely not, that's not who I want to work with. So either way, I feel like it's a win.
Definitely.
So how does it feel? I mean, I'm going to tell a story that happened between us. Good one. Now, I met a guy, broker, that he came out and he goes, yes, I just want you to guide me, a little bit about what I'm doing. And I said to him, well, tell me, what does success looks like? And he said to me, I want to be like Christian Stevens. That person didn't know that I knew you at all. Had no idea. You know who I'm talking about, obviously. But that's true story. The person highlighted you as the person that he wants to become. I find him a smart person in general. He's quite well presentable, and I ended up connecting you to him.
You did.
Right? Because I think it was worthwhile you talking, and you've done amazing taking him under your wing and talking to him and meeting with him and all that kind of stuff. But how does it make you feel? There is a sense of responsibility, because if someone wants to be like you, it means you're a leader in your space, right? And that's it. And we can say it as much as we would like to say it, but until someone actually recognizes it in the way that this guy recognized, without knowing that I even know you, that is very powerful. How does it make you feel, and what sense of responsibility does this put on you?
Look, it obviously makes you feel like you've achieved something. I think if I rewind to when I started in broking, I didn't have that. I didn't have anyone I could really talk to. Like there is mentoring in our industry, but it is pretty broken. It's not. I wouldn't say it's the right kind of thing for the modern broker, the traditional mentoring program. But I've always gone out of my way to ask other brokers how they've succeeded, and I've had some really great people in the industry make time for me. But I think there's an obligation to the younger generation of brokers coming through to offer them time. I've always got time for anyone else as long as I don't waste my time. Yeah. And, some people reach out to me just with a couple of questions. Some will reach out to me and book in, a monthly catch up. And, I don't get anything out of that monetary wise. It's just, I'm more than happy to help others get to where they want to get to if they really want to make a difference. And I think I've had enough of these meetings over the years that you know pretty quick if someone's serious about what they're talking about, or if they're just trying to tell you what you want to hear. And that person you were talking to, I agree. He's presents well spoken, but what I liked the most was he wants to make a difference. And coming from yourself, I know that's what you're all about as well. That power of impact investing. But I've got time for people that want to move the needle, that want to do something that others can't.
Are you arrogant?
I don't think so. I think some people might think I am. I think I've got earned confidence. I think there's a very, very big difference.
Okay, I like that.
I think it's hard not to be the best at something without pissing some people off. Yeah. The reality is Australia has the worst tall poppy syndrome in the world. And, people want you to do well until you're doing better than them, and then they want to tear you down. So, look, I don't get too caught up with comments or what people think about me, and I try and also surround myself with people that bring out the best in me. Okay,
I asked that question because I wanted you.
Do you think I am?
No, I genuinely don't think you're arrogant at all. I think you're the sweetest person, and I think for people to know that, they just need to put that extra effort, because you can put your guard up sometimes. I've seen that. But I've also seen you welcoming people completely randoms and taking them on a journey of support and help. And I say very proudly, you're one of my closest friends, because I genuinely feel that we have a sense of connection that is unique. And it's purely because we met completely randomly. I mean, we're going to have to share a bit about these stories, but the good ones again. No, but I've got another question. You mentioned about mentorships. Can you tell us a bit about your mentors and a story that shaped your life, that did it transform? Like, mentors can transform us completely.
Definitely.
And sometimes they don't even know they're transforming someone. Can you tell us a story about a mentor that you've had that transformed your life, impacted you significantly, changed the way you think, the way you approach things, that ended up working in your favor as a general thing?
I've got lots of individual mentors. I think as I've grown over the years, I've realized that, branding, marketing, positioning, PR, operations, AI, whatever. I think it's important to have like a panel of mentors that you can ask relevant questions to you, and they can give you the correct answers. If you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers, especially if they're emotionally involved or connected to you. So I think it's important for a mentor to be more business than a personal friend if you're going to ask them business related questions. But mentors have been vital for my success.
I want an example, that. I'm not going to let you just go by.
I'm trying to think of one that's relevant. I won't say who it is, but someone very close to me he was very, very successful in the Australian Defence Force. Resilience would be a word that I would use to describe him. Recently, I've had some challenges and I needed a bit of guidance from someone who I knew would give me straight answers, and I could feel comfortable saying that, you know, I guess I failed isn't the right word, but you know, I'd found something that was very, very challenging and I hadn't seen the result that I thought I'd receive. And that 1 hour on the phone with that person really gave me the clarity to understand that it's completely fine if things don't work out the way that you think they're going to work out. And as I said before, what you do now and learn from that is far more important than what actually happened. And that conversation alone gave me the confidence to, I guess, just get back to it and realize that, you know, in a short period of time, you can pretty much undo anything negative that happens. And, you know, that's what happened. It ended up being a lot better.
You know what you just reminded me? There's a Japanese art that is about if you break something, like a teapot or something, they fix it together with gold to increase the value of it. Sometimes when something is actually broken, you could increase the value by amending it through success, through delivering better outcomes, and through actually showcasing that I can turn this broken piece of pot into a piece of art, which is basically if you put that in, if you go through a challenge and you turn this into a success story, that challenge becomes a good thing, not a bad thing, because it increases value, not reduces value.
Any challenging time I've had in my life, what's come off the back of that has been incredible because I've learned from it. And I think the reality that nothing bad is ever going to happen in business is quite delusional. And any really successful person I know in business has failed multiple times, had falling out with business partners, or had lots of learnings. That's just reality. And as I said before, the ones that are really, really good are just the ones that have bounced back faster and learned from their mistakes quicker. That's it.
So a rowing guy, a promoter, a broker on the Richard Branson's island. How did you get there?
I'd ask myself that question still often, to be frank. The trajectory's been quite aggressive. I think if I think about, 5-6 years ago, I was earning $40,000 a year, living at my parents' house with nothing to my name, to where I am today. It's really still a bit of a pinch me moment. I knew Amanda Johnston, who's like Australia's leading AI expert. She'd gone to Richard Branson's Island the year before, and she reached out to me and said, look, I think you get a lot out of this. Would you like me to introduce you to Chris from the CEO magazine? And it all happened quite fast, but I'm not a big solo traveller. I don't like going to do things on my own. So I went to the British Virgin Islands, 36 hours travelling completely solo. I didn't know anyone except for one or two people actually on that trip. And I just threw myself into something. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. Obviously met you, which is a nice byproduct of that. But from a professional perspective, being in an environment where no one wanted anything but to help you professionally was an odd environment to be in. There were no strings attached. You could ask kind of unweighted questions. And off the back of what you said before about mentorship, it was a great example of what you can learn from the right people.
Yes.
And then what came off the back of that is I've gone out of my way since then to put myself into circles or networks where I can learn, where I can evolve. And what I've learnt since then in business is kind of 10x what I'd learned the decade before that. So I think being around the right people is like, if you spend 10 years doing something, you can teach me what you've learned over that 10 years. So I can start at year 10 rather than year 1.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of great mentors, the power of great connections, and the power of great business is having those relationships. And I think, I've had, off the back of that trip, several of the people that went there are still good friends of mine, and we still catch up regularly, and we still spitball ideas, and they're people that I trust because I went through that experience with them.
That's amazing. Tanya, I'll tell you an interesting story. Right? I'm not going to tell all the stories, but I'm going to tell a story that one of the things I learned in that island. Don't wait for someone to wake you up for a trip. Just set your own alarm and you go on the trip. Because Christian, I'm gonna have to mention this, all right? It's a casual.
By the way,
conversation.
we were roommates, so we hadn't met each other before, and I was thrown in a room with Yas, not knowing anything about him or never met him, and
With a pharaoh. Definitely. We're complete random strangers. We never met. And the bond and the friendship we created out of this was very powerful. But one of the things that I can say that we can learn from here, and it's relevant to QuestX, is not everything that seems uncomfortable is bad. We need to sometimes learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because good things comes out of that. The funny experience that I had with Christian there, it's a token of bonding and friendship, because there was no hard feelings at anything. We just laughed all the way through. We were going with Richard Branson on a bike ride. Okay, I'm only going to mention this story because he wouldn't like me to mention all the other stories. No, true story. So I said to Christian, just to make sure, because we went late to sleep, I said, look, we're not sure we're going to wake up or not. So whoever wakes up first wakes the other one up, so we make sure we don't miss the bike ride, right? And I get up. I'm like, Christian, you need to wake up. Christian, you need to wake up. And he's not responding. So I get up and I look, and he wasn't in bed. He got up and he went for the bike ride, right? I look at the time and I had like 2 minutes to get there. So I'm rushing, running, getting dressed and running. And I turn him and he looks at me, he's like, how did you make it? I left you asleep in the room. So he tried to wake me up apparently, right? We don't know, it's debatable.
he's a heavy sleeper.
So anyway, and then I woke up with my sliders, and he makes fun of me the whole trip because you don't go on a bike ride with sliders. So Richard Branson ended up giving me his shoes to put it on to go on the bike ride. So, but the moral of this story is that you can create friendship and bond if you just let yourself go out of your comfort zone and allow people to go into your inner circle a little bit. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I know I could call you at any time and ask for, an introduction to someone or ask your opinion, and it would be an unweighted response. And I think often you ask people for a favor, or you ask people for introduction, or you ask people a question, and you feel like you're getting something in return, but there's something attached to it. And it's just not the case with you or for anyone else on that island, for that matter. And then again, what that taught me was people who are truly successful don't normally want anything in return. They're happy to give their time, they're happy to give their knowledge, and they're happy to give their advice because they've got everything that they want.
That's what QuestX is about, isn't it?
It is in many ways. I think what that made me think, because I actually feel the same way about Yasser, that I could call him and ask him for anything at any time of day, at any day of the week, and he will, one, take the call, and two, help me if I need help. But I think that actually also comes down to you building really strong relationships, and this idea of I've never met someone who's more generous with their time. And it sounds actually, when you were talking about how you help people and how you meet with people for monthly catch-ups, there's not many people that would do that. It seems like what you both have in common outside of your success is that you are very willing to give to people who need help, as long as they don't waste your time. I see that in you. But I wonder, for someone who's earlier in their business journey, who isn't part of a social network, who hasn't got access to go to Richard Branson's island, what's something that both of you suggest they could do as a first step to being in a room with business people? Obviously, we're going to tell them to come to QuestX. Outside of that, how do you establish these connections? And then for Yasser, how do you continually build strong relationships?
I think you'd be surprised how far you can get by just asking the question. People overthink, that they're not going to have time, or I'm not, successful enough, or I've had people who are new to industry brokers, or people who aren't even broking yet. I had a guy on Friday morning who's followed me up probably 11 times on Instagram and Facebook. And my first comment to him was, "You'll be a good broker." But he's in construction at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I had about a 45-minute conversation from Sydney up to Avalon around understanding his niche, where I think he should position himself. I didn't get anything out of that.
Yeah.
You know, he lives in the Gold Coast. Like it's so far disconnected from what I'm doing that, you know, but it does help me with my own dialogue and my own questions. And where I was going with that is, you know, he just reached out to me. He's not in the industry. He hasn't achieved anything in broking. And he sent me a long message originally giving context about who he was, why he wanted to reach out to me, and he followed up aggressively. And the reality is that, as I always say to the junior brokers, it's all in the follow-up.
Yeah.
And I think if you pester someone enough, if you really want to get a hold of them, they're going to make time for you. And if you just ask the question, you'll be very surprised how many people will say this. And the worst case, the worst thing that happens is they say no, and you're in the same position you were anyway.
Yeah.
So you're not losing anything.
Yeah.
But you've got everything to gain.
Mm. Do you agree with that, Yasser? I feel like I was the aggressive person on Instagram with you, and when we met, I said I'm going to message you every week, and I pretty much have.
Yes.
I've been the one that has been like, no, you will be my friend, and you will answer my questions, and you will, and you actually replied, so it worked.
Look, my journey defines a lot of my communication, right? So we have to recognize that I craved someone to help me, and I didn't always get it. So I understand what that means. But a lot of the times, as Christian said, I didn't ask the question, right? So asking the question is definitely important. Just ask the question and then take it from there. But the bigger thing is how much are you persistent on getting the outcome? So asking the question once is not always going to get you what you want, because if I'm getting asked 1,000 questions a day, I probably will only respond to one or two. But the one or two that are persistent and are really keen and really eager and really willing and understand is very important. Your other question about connections and relationships. Value is such an important thing in life. How much value are we adding to each other? The mentor and the mentee have to get value out of the conversation and that discussion. The value doesn't have to be monetary value. It doesn't have to be, but it can be a sense of achievement, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of feeling of giving back. So if I'm going to reach out to someone to mentor me, I need to highlight to them what value I'm going to add to them. Why would they invest the time with me? And why would they? Because having a conversation with someone that will lead their future and give him success, that's good for me. That gives me satisfaction. I'm happy to do it. But having a conversation with someone to just, for the sake of having a conversation, maybe it's not the right time for me. So if you really want someone to mentor you, and if you want to build a relationship and connection with someone to mentor you, and actually be persistent and tell them what value you're going to add. Because it's very important that relationships and our relationship with our siblings, with our partners, with our parents, it has value add. Whether it's love and connection, whether it's relationships, whether it's care, whatever that is, find the value add and communicate it. That's how I view it.
I think further to that as well, like, you know, the way that you rocked up this morning and you've done your research, you're prepared. You're not just, you know, you think of coming to the meeting and people haven't thought about what they're going to ask. It's just is what would annoy me. But if you come and you're prepared and you've got a list of questions and you're clear about your vision, then, you know, I've always got time for someone who's wanting to make a difference in their life.
Makes sense.
So why do you think there are business owners out there that don't have this approach? Because you will see many times that small and medium business owners want to be bigger businesses. They want to do better, but they have either an education gap or maybe a mindset issue. There's one of two things, I think. So why do you think it is that if someone approached another person, whether they're at your level or a level above or a level below you, and they didn't receive the same warm welcome that you have with people? The example of talking to someone for a 45-minute car ride that's not going to benefit you in any way. Lots of people would just not take that call. They would filter that call. They'd have a gatekeeper take those people out. Why do you think that you have this, or both of you have this mindset around how can I add value? How might they add value to me? How can we help each other? How can I help someone on their journey? And other people say, actually, it's not worth my time. I'm too busy. I'm too important. This isn't worth my time. Why would I do that? What's in it for me?
I don't think a lot of, I'd be very surprised to hear a lot of people would have that mindset, particularly of they don't care, all right? Because we all need help at some point. And we cannot deliver on our own. It's just a fact of life, right? We always need someone along the way to back us up, whether moral support, whether actual support through business or other. What I think is that you come at a point of time that your interests change. And if the person is not researching enough who they're talking to, they don't attract their attention because their interests have changed over the years. As you grow in business, your interest and knowledge changes. So if I'm going to speak with someone, I'm happy to speak with everybody that wants to speak with me, but at a point of time, I won't be able to speak to everyone that wants to speak to me. So then who are the ones that I'm going to be able to do that with? I think that's a key point into it. So it's not about, because I asked Christian earlier, are you arrogant? Because I can tell you that Christian is not arrogant at all. He is a very loving, caring, giving back person. I'm telling you that firsthand, all right? But he can come across like that because of the confidence he has. So are we perceiving people to be arrogant or not willing to take the call? Or are they actually not willing to take the call? Or have we displayed asked the right questions for them? Did we do the research? Do we even know who we're talking to? Do we even know who we want to mentor? Do we even know what we want to get out of them? One thing when mentees come to me and say, what would you tell me to have a successful mentorship approach? And I say the mentee needs to lead the discussion and not let the mentor lead the discussion. Because commonly what we have is the mentee will come in and the mentor will just say, this is how you do it, this is how you should do it, this is how it happened. And the mentor leads the whole conversation. So what we're doing here is the mentee is learning what the mentor wants to teach them. But the narrative should be reversed. As a mentee, I need to ask the questions that are relevant to me, that I want to learn, and lead that conversation. And ultimately, the mentor can then share the experiences and what I want to learn. And by understanding my mentor, I'll be able to ask the questions that are relevant to their experience. And that will attract attention.
I think there is still people, though, who aren't in the same mindset. I'll give you an example, and I won't mention names of anything, so it's not descriptive. But I was at an event. I was a sponsor of an event. I gave out an award at an event. There was an after party. Someone came up to me and said, let me introduce you to X. We walked over there, and they said, hey, can I introduce you to Tanya? Told them what I did, and the person said no and walked away.
That's highly unusual. I can't, that's a very weird situation.
And the person introducing me was very dumbfounded. And I was like, right. And he introduced me to somebody else and tried to segue me away. But I wasn't silly. I could see it.
You, Tanya, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, look,
you weren't there that night.
Firstly, that's horrible. So I'm sorry you have to go through that. Look, that rarely happens, really. Like, they might not be too interested in you, but they're not going to... wouldn't usually fob you off like that.
That was weird.
But also, like, there's some there's some people out there that are just rude. And the reality is that everyone's not going to be your biggest advocate. Everyone's not going to be your friend. And
it's like tall poppy syndrome, like you said, right?
But sometimes it's who introduces you to, and I don't know who introduced you. I don't know the story. So
I'll tell you the story.
But sometimes who introduces you. Like, I can tell you now, if I introduce you to Christian, I can guarantee you that Christian will talk to you, even if he's not willing to talk to you.
Yeah.
Because of the relationship that I have with him. And vice versa, all right?
These were business partners. They were both co-founders of a business.
That's your answer there. You know, business partners don't always get along.
True.
Okay. The fact of it is, if I'm introducing you to someone, I will introduce you, and I have an expectation this person will pay attention and respect.
Access and influence.
That's the access and influence. Thank you very much. I always say these two things, and Christian heard me saying them. Access and influence is what makes the difference. Now, that person had access, but had zero influence. That's why you got the no. So that's a component. You need to know who are you, who is helping you to do the introduction as well. Do they have enough influence to get that part in?
Yeah.
When we started QuestX, the first thing you asked me, how are we going to get the speakers in no time? The podcast, how are you going to... I said, my relationship with these people, they will bend backwards to make it happen.
We're back to the relationship piece.
I'll give you an example. On the weekend, I had lunch with some friends, and one of them that was there, who you know actually, said to me, he's got a medtech startup, and said, oh, look, do you reckon Yas would have some time just to, if I asked him a couple of questions, because I wanted to get some feedback on NDIS and a few other things. I said, mate, if I introduce you to Yas, he'll have time for you. And I meant that in the way that, like I wouldn't waste his time and introduce you to someone that, and vice versa. And I think it's understanding who you're referring someone through to and making sure that they both have value.
They respect you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And look, again, I wouldn't have to say, oh, by the way, can you give this guy some time? I just would go without saying. And vice versa, if I said, can you talk to whoever, like you did the other day, I didn't say, oh, who are they? And I'm super busy. I just said, yeah, sure, send me his details.
It's that component, right? So if you tell me that person was arrogant towards you, I would say absolutely not, but they were arrogant towards their partner. That's where the problem is.
Also, you learned that they're probably just not the right fit.
Yeah. No, look, I wasn't offended, but it's also back to the tall poppy syndrome idea of that not every business is out to try and help other businesses. Some people are still in the mindset of that, what's the word? There's not enough to go around.
But why is it an expectation they do? See, I'd argue with you on the narrative itself. I shouldn't expect any business to help me. I should expect every business to help me because they get value out of me.
Yeah.
I need to have a value proposition in every conversation I'm having. And again, it doesn't have to be monetary, but it can be mentorship on a psychological level or on a friendship. Sometimes people value friendship beyond anything else. And that's all they need is your friendship. So give them the friendship. They will give you the things you need, the help you need. But we have an expectation that people just help us for nothing. Why? I mean, some people do, and it's beautiful and admirable, but why do you have that expectation? Why can't you put effort in finding the value proposition to be able to give back to that person so they are interested in helping you out a bit more? Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah, adding value is powerful. It's the narrative of, I have nothing to offer.
Yeah.
We spoke about the art of storytelling. I have no story to tell. Everyone has something to offer.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story to tell. They just need to work hard on finding that.
I'll give you examples. So a lot of the brokers have B2B targets of referring partner meetings they're supposed to be doing each week. And I always say to them, if you're not going there and adding value to the partner that you're meeting with, then why are they going to send you business?
Yeah.
If you're not doing the same thing that 18,000 other brokers are doing, and you just started broking, then obviously you're going to lose to someone who's been broking for 10 years if you're doing the same thing that they're doing. So I think it's understanding who your market is, what you're offering them, and how you're adding value.
Yeah.
And the rest will kind of take care of itself.
And I think in that example, it's also the brand alignment. And I get people almost every week. I had one yesterday email me and say, would love to set up a referral pathway to send you our clients, which really means they want my clients, right? It's actually what the wording meant. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, okay, you have 1,300 clients that you work with. They're probably, some of them are my target market. But actually, as far as brand alignment goes, it would have been much more powerful for them to actually do some research about me, come and tell me, exactly how my clients match their clients, talk to me about the value, because really I have enough leads. I don't need leads from you that may or may not convert, that haven't been through my funnel, that need more educating. It actually might slow me down to take clients from you as opposed to market myself how I want to market myself. So thinking that through, go, okay, what research have they done? What value can they add beyond the dollar figure? Because I have lots of different people who want to get in front of my audience, who want to tell me they're adding value. But when you look at it, it's actually like, no, you just actually want to promote yourself more. There's not actually any value for my audience in this interaction. And I might give you 3 clients in a year, which might be, look, it might be a couple $100 that I get for that. But to align myself with your brand for that and all the efforts it's going to take to set up all of those things, probably not worth it.
And that automatically makes you, in a way, shut down the conversation. Right?
Yeah.
And then maybe they will, if I ask them, they will say Tanya's arrogant.
Yeah.
Correct? So, because it's all perception, right? The fact of it is, and I'm just being a little bit controversial with you, Tanya, but it's in a happy way. The fact of it is, we need to understand why a person would say no and how can I cross the line with that. That's all it is.
Sometimes saying no as well can be the best thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise you end up wasting an enormous amount of time, money, resources, flogging a dead horse that's not going to go anywhere. And I always say this to the brokers all the time. If you've met up with someone for 10, 20 times and haven't sent you any business, it's probably not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think understanding, and especially for clients as well, if a deal doesn't smells a bit off, or you've been flogging it too hard, sometimes there's actually a power in saying no to a client or a partner.
Absolutely.
Rather than saying yes to try and please everyone, because at the end of the day, you've only got a certain amount of hours in the day to to get business done.
And I love that saying that everything you say yes to is actually something else you're saying no to.
Yep.
That actually time is finite. We don't have unlimited time and resources. So if you're going to say yes to something, it has to actually be like a hell yes. I actually really want to do this. Otherwise, there's many other things. And for me, I have 4 children. So I'm constantly thinking, yeah, I could say yes to this. I could take on another client. I could do this other project. I could help this person. But that probably means that the Friday I have with my daughter is now going to be taken up with phone calls for the next 13 weeks. And is that the trade-off here to do this project? And if it is, then I have to make that decision knowing that that's actually the trade-off.
Tell me something that we don't know about you, Christian.
Something you don't know about me. I love gardening.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right.
What do you do?
He doesn't even have a garden.
I do outside. During COVID, actually, I used to grow a lot of like potted plants, and I like keeping things alive.
Okay.
I'd love to have an aquarium.
You have a small
but my wife
garden,
won't let me have one. I don't know. I just think my life is so full of on-screen, digital-related stuff that it's the polar opposite.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd love to have a farm down in the
that.
Southern Highlands and go down there every weekend and just not.
You would love to, or you do?
I would love to. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
How would you get there with no car?
I'll get Yas to drive me.
That's when you say no. Right? That's the time. Christian Stevens is a business person that is very successful. Tell me this Christian Stevens, the man at home. What's your habits? What do you do? How disciplined are you in your habits? Tell me the man.
I think the other half of that is my beautiful wife. I'll come full circle on this. There's a direct period of time in my life where things started going really, really well, and that was when I met Nicolina. I think the two most important relationships, obviously business and personal. And when one's not going too well, the other also usually follows. So I have a great relationship with my wife. It's perfect. Things I thought were unachievable become quite easy because of the support that I get from her. And again, back to that team comment when we first started, having a strong home life means I find the business stuff fairly easy, or what would be normally challenging isn't as challenging. So, I'm always trying to be the best version of myself. But look, I'm pretty resilient. I deal with stress fairly well, but sometimes it gets too much. Recently I lost 10 kilos because prior to that I hadn't been doing any exercise and been working and not prioritizing other things that were as important, like health. So I think, no one's perfect, and sometimes you need a catalyst for change to realize that you need to do better. But the man, if you'd asked me this question, a couple of years ago to now, I think it's always evolving. It's always changing. I like to think I'm proud of who I am, but I could definitely be better. I don't think for one second I'm anywhere near perfect. But that's what excites me. I'm always learning, evolving and changing, and that's just the journey of life that you go on. If you told me 10 years ago when I was getting home at 5 a.m. from working in a nightclub that I'd be running two of the biggest brokerages in the country, it's just so far from where I was to where I am now in such a short period of time that it excites me for what I can achieve over the next 10 years, knowing what I've learnt to date.
Yeah, I can see your journey is becoming. I'm actually very proud to be part of that journey one way or another. I can tell you that. Now, you never met Tanya before. If you're interviewing Tanya, what would be the question you'd ask her to know her?
How is having 4 children changed the way that you go about your business?
Oh, you want me to answer it?
No, I want you to just look pretty in front of camera.
What's the 4? I've done that. What's 4 children? So I had a business before I had children. My first business I had at 21. I had my first son at 26. So children have always been part of my business. I've breastfed for 8 years of my life, and I've just had children with me doing everything that I do. I trained a group of teachers, 1,200 teachers, when my baby was 4 weeks old, and wore him Addison. My second son, I wore him in a papoose while I trained 1,200 teachers. So my children are part of business life. They talk business. My 12-year-old has a share portfolio, and he talks to me about stocks and shares, and he's a future CEO or a psychopath. I can't tell which one. But he's definitely very business-minded. My oldest one's more sports-minded, but my second one, all business-minded. So I think it's everything I do has always been about giving them a better life than what I had as a child, a better life, a better childhood, a better lifestyle. All the choices I've made have been around them, and business has allowed me to be both the mother that I wanted to be as well as the businesswoman that I wanted to be. So for me, they're both one and the same.
I have a lot of successful female friends, and this conversation I have with them regularly is that balance between home life and business, because I do feel like it's quite difficult. Well, the time we just launched She Invest, was like a female empowerment arm of the business for both brokers and clients.
I loved your International Women's Day events. That were amazing.
I just think it just doesn't get anywhere near enough attention. That, I guess, niche you'd call it in our industry. But why I'm saying that is because, you know, even for myself and my wife at the moment, you know, we're still having kids at some point soon, but how is she going to be able to balance her career with what we're doing? So I think it's an interesting one where you're clearly able to achieve what you want to achieve and be a present mother and have kids. But it's hard.
Yeah, and there's ebbs and flows. There's times where it's easier and times where it's harder, and times where the business takes a back step, and the times where family take the front step, and you have to work around that and merge as you go through different stages. I currently have one in high school, 2 in primary school, and 1 in childcare. So I've kind of got the whole spectrum of children. And I think the hardest thing for me as a woman in business has been the mum guilt that comes with it of missing things.
Yep.
So I'm very intentional and very organized, as much as Yasser gives me a hard time for how organized I am. I plan my whole year 12 months in advance. We block out school holidays, we block out birthdays, we block out family trips first, and then we put in the work stuff. And I found that over time, and I could only do that being self-employed. I have had corporate jobs. I'm a teacher by background, so I've worked in the school system. And none of that was as flexible. So that was the driver for being my own business person was, and I actually sold my first business when I was pregnant with my son, because I knew that the hours that I was doing and the running and the pushing and the hustle was too much to do when I was having my first child. And I went back to a corporate job till he was 6. And then I decided to go out on my own because I felt like I'd done the hard yards. And now it was time I could take some more risks. But yeah, the mum guilt, and also just the loss of identity. I feel like there's many periods in my life where I lose my identity and become mum and then have to start again. But for me, that's the perfect catalyst to do something new, launch a new business, push harder, do some more education. And I have 10 qualifications in different areas. So I feel that each one of those has kind of aligned to a different stage of my children's life. And I can tell you, like I started doing my master's degree when my second son was 6 weeks old. You know, I started my PhD when my daughter turned 1. So all of that, all of my goals have aligned around when it was right for my kids. But yeah, I think it's definitely doable, but it's always, and I don't really believe in work-life balance or work-life integration. It's kind of like throw it all on the table. It has to get done, and you just do the things that have to get done that day.
Yep. Impressive.
Thank you.
Inspired?
So Yasser, what's one thing we don't know about you?
Far out. What's one thing you don't know about me?
My mind's racing.
Oh, God.
I've interviewed you about 10 times now, right?
I don't know how you want bad or good stuff. I don't know if it's bad or good stuff. I don't know if I said that before, but I did modeling in my uni days.
For Calvin Klein?
Well, we're not going to brand.
It was a long time
ago. Last year. No, I did that in my younger ages. I played basketball professionally. And I'll tell you actually a funny story. I don't know if it's funny, but it's when I was a kid. If my dad passed now, but if he heard this story now, he would probably be smacking me hard. So when I was a little bit of a naughty influence on my friends, right? And I had a couple of really good friends, which one of them is one of the top police officers in Egypt today, right? So he's a very high-level police officer. And when we were very young, and I'm talking maybe 11 years old, 12 years old, we went and hired bicycles. And we were not allowed to go far from home. It was around the corner. And I influenced my friends that we go far. And we hired it for half an hour only just to play around the area, you know. And I convinced him that the guy doesn't care if we stay 3-4 hours out on the bikes, even if we hired it for half an hour. They somehow believed me. And we ended up riding far, all right, which is road far. And when we came back, the guy was standing very angry because we're like 4 hours later looking up. So I saw the guy angry. So I jumped off the bike and I threw the bike at the guy and just ran away. So my other friend ran away, and the police officer today got caught. All right. And he till today, because being a police officer now is just the irony behind it. Because we had no money to pay the rest of the money. And the guy ended up shutting the shop at him and keeping him there as a punishment to clean the whole thing. And it was just, it was funny that sometimes friends can be bad influence.
I think you're a bad influence all the time.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's been a really great episode. Thank you so much for joining us on the QuestX podcast. And
it's amazing to have you. QuestX podcast is a passion project, and thank you for contributing your time to that. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.